Hello, my name is Valeria and I will be covering the Mexican Revolution in 10 minutes or less. Mexico, as we know it, is full of beautiful beaches, delicious food, and much, much more. Though, this country also has its dark past that many people don't seem to talk about. Much of its history isn't taught in schools enough, so I have decided to cover one of my most favorite topics in all of Mexican American studies. Let's take a look at what went down before the revolution. It all started with this guy right here. His name is Porfirio Diaz. He was a former general and politician who soon got the role of a dictator. He ruled for over 35 years from November 28, 1876, all the way to the 25th of May, 1911. How did this man stay in power, you may ask? Simple, manipulation. And what do dictators like doing for fun? Simple. They like to control the people and make their lives miserable and start wars just because. Awesome. But in all seriousness, he was not good. Diaz mistreated the lower class by subjecting them to low wages, long hours, and harsh working conditions. The citizens at the time were mostly poor and had no money or food to provide for their families. He totally played favorites with the rich people in big foreign companies, leaving the poor folks out to dry. Imagine having to work super hard for barely any money and no say in anything. That's what life was like for a lot of people back then. Plus, if you were indigenous, things were even worse. They got pushed off their land and treated like second-class citizens. Diaz didn't want anyone questioning his power, so he shut down anyone who spoke up against him. It was like he didn't care about the struggles of everyday folks trying to make a living. So yeah, his time in charge was pretty rough for anyone who wasn't already sitting at the fancy dinner table. And it went something like this.
Good morning, my hardworking citizens. How are we all doing today?
Oh, just peachy, Mr. President. Just another day of breaking our backs for a living. You know, the usual.
Come on now. Don't be so dramatic. You're helping to build a modern, prosperous Mexico.
Yeah, but we're not exactly reaping the benefits, are we? My pockets are as empty as promises during election season.
Well, you see, sacrifices must be made for progress. And I promise, trickle-down economics will start, trickling any day now.
Sure. Meanwhile, I'll just keep dreaming of the day when I can afford more than beans and tortillas for dinner.
Fair point. But hey, at least you have the honor of serving your country, right?
Yeah, and a whole lot of debt. Thanks a bunch, Mr. President.
You're welcome, I guess.
But you see, his reign didn't last long, because now I'm going to introduce to you all the heroes who fought for the rights of the Mexican people. Here we have Francisco Madero, Pancho Villa, and Emiliano Zapata. Who are these guys anyway? Well, let's start off with Francisco Madero. Francisco Madero was a central figure in the Mexican Revolution, a movement that aimed to bring about significant changes in Mexican society and politics. Born into a wealthy family in 1873, Madero grew up witnessing the injustices and inequalities prevalent in Mexican society under the long rule of President Porfirio Diaz. Inspired by principles of democracy and social justice, Madero became a vocal critic of Diaz's authoritarian regime. He believed in the importance of fair elections, freedom of speech, and equal opportunities for all Mexicans, regardless of their social status. Madero's ideas gained widespread support, particularly among the middle and lower classes who were disillusioned with Diaz's policies favoring the wealthy elite and foreign investors. In 1910, Madero published his famous book, The Presidential Succession of 1910. In which he called for the ousting of Diaz and the restoration of democracy in Mexico. His rallying cry resonated with many disaffected Mexicans, sparking a nationwide uprising against Diaz's dictatorship. This marked the beginning of the Mexican Revolution. Madero's leadership during the revolution was instrumental in mobilizing diverse groups to join the cause against Diaz. With the support of revolutionary leaders like Emiliano Zapata and Pancho Villa, Madero succeeded in forcing Diaz to resign in 1911 and fled the country. Then we have Pancho Villa. Pancho Villa was a big deal during the Mexican Revolution. He was like a Robin Hood figure, fighting for the little guys against the rich and powerful. Villa was a tough guy from the countryside who became a leader of rebel forces. He led his troops in daring raids against the government and wealthy landowners, gaining a reputation as a fierce fighter. Villa's popularity soared because he fought for land reform and better treatment of the poor. His army is known as the Dorados, the Golden Ones, was made up of regular folks like farmers and workers who believed in his cause. But Villa was also a complex figure. While he fought for justice, he was also known for his ruthless tactics in battle. He's remembered as a hero by many for his role in the revolution, but his legacy is also debated because of the violence associated with his actions. After the revolution, Villa tried to settle down but was later assassinated in 1923. Despite his controversial reputation, Pancho Villa remains a symbol of resistance and the fight for social justice in Mexico. Lastly, we have Emiliano Zapata. Born in 1979 in Morelos, Mexico, Zapata witnessed the exploitation of rural peasants by wealthy landowners. This experience shaped his determination to fight for the rights of the marginalized. Zapata's rallying cry, Land and Liberty, reflected on his core belief in agrarian reform. In 1911, he penned a Plan de Ayala, a document advocating for the redistribution of land to the peasants who worked it. Zapata's Liberation Army of the South became known for its guerrilla tactics as it fought against the governing forces of Porfirio Diaz and later Francisco Madero. And yes, as shocking as that sounds, Francisco Madero was both a hero, but at the end of the day, he wasn't. Anyways, despite facing numerous challenges and betrayal, Zapata remained committed to his cause until his assassination in 1919. His legacy endures as a symbol of resistance and social justice. Zapata's influence extends beyond his military campaigns. He is remembered for his unwavering dedication to the rights of the oppressed and his vision for a more equal society. Today, he continues to inspire movements worldwide that seek to address issues of land rights and social inequality. So yeah, these are the heroes who helped the Mexican people out and stop Porfirio Diaz from being in power and being in the office. But what about all the fights and wars that occurred during this time? Well, just to summarize, 10 tragic days, a coup in 1913 against President Madero led by General Huerta resulted in the fierce fighting in Mexico City. Number 2, Constitutionalist Revolution led by Carranza aimed to restore constitutional order and enact reforms. Number 3, Revolt of the North, led by Villano Orozco, began in 1910 against Diaz's re-election, later turned against Madero. Number 4, Zapatista Rebellion, led by Zapata in southern Mexico, focused on agrarian reform and indigenous rights. Number 5, Villista-Carrancista conflict. Conflict between Villa and Carranza over the revolution's directions resolved in Carranza's victory at Celaya in 1915. Lastly, number 6, Conventionist Rebellion. Coalition of revolutionary leaders formed the Convention of Aguascalientes in 1914, but internal divisions led to Carranza's victory. These conflicts led to significant social, political, and economic changes, including the drafting of a new constitution in 1917 and land redistribution. The Mexican Revolution ended in 1920 with the establishment of a new government led by Álvaro Obregón. This period marked a significant shift in Mexican politics and society. The new government aimed to address some of the key grievances that had been fueled by the revolution, including land reforms and labor rights. While the revolution brought about significant changes, including the drafting of a new constitution in 1917 that enshrined many of these reforms, it also left deep scars and unresolved issues. Nevertheless, the end of the revolution marked a new chapter in Mexican history, characterized by efforts to rebuild the nation and address the challenges facing its people. And there you go. That is the Mexican Revolution summarized in 10 minutes or less.